And thank you for coming along to my talk today, which is, of course, going to be how PowerWash Simulator transformed our studio. So before I begin, just to introduce myself, I am Toby. I'm the head of production at the studio. Before that, I guess I started out in sort of moderation, player support, and online safety at Disney. I then moved into QA, joined a writing team, joined a production team, and now I'm head of production at FuturLab, which I joined in March 2019. So the talk today is in three parts, really. I'm going to give you a brief overview of FuturLab's backstory, because we've been around a lot longer than I've been there. And then I'm going to talk about how we grew, but within the context of PowerWash Simulator, and how that really fueled our growth. And then I'm going to end with some top learnings from our rapid expansion, if any of you were to go through the same thing in the future. So before I begin, what is PowerWash Simulator? It does sound a bit daft to some people. I've had significant others, best friends, parents really laugh at the idea of what I've been working on, but it's fine. It does sound unusual, but it also does exactly what it says. It's been a huge success. So we've had over 18 million downloads, and we're in the top 100 best rated games on Steam. We've released 8 premium content packs, and really players just love to relax with a really soothing gameplay, which is wonderful. So here is FuturLab, here is our timeline, here's everything plotted up until the end of 2024. We have been around since 2003. It started out as just a team of 2 people. They were creating Flash games, if you remember that era. And throughout the years, we really did a mix of work for hire, so taking on projects for publishers or for other studios or organizations that wanted something doing, making our own original IPs as well. Now, we had a really great relationship with Sony. We were really, really lucky early on. So we got to work with them on PlayStation Minis, PlayStation Mobile, PlayStation Vita. And I think in total we shipped about 16 games and sort of experiences, but the team never exceeded around about 20 prior to 20. Which is what we'll be talking about. Excuse me. If you can see the timeline, up there it is. You may see some standouts there, Coconut Dodge, if anyone played that. And there are a few cancelled ones in there as well. Not everything ever makes it to market, so there are a few of those. Velocity was a big game for us. I don't know if you've heard of this one, but it found really great critical success. And it was an original IP. It was one of our ideas. We tried to bring it to as many platforms as possible over the years. And commercial success, unfortunately, proved to be elusive. But it did put us on the radar of a lot of gamers around the world. We then had a period which is sort of the PlayStation VR years. Again, Sony had been really, really supportive of us, and we got to work on some really varied titles for their platform. Tiny Tracks was one, and Mini-Mech Mayhem was another, and Mini-Mech Mayhem was what we were working on when I came and joined the studio in 2019. Again, commercials elusive studio. Apologies, are we having sound issues? Am I cutting in and out, or is it just my ears? Okay, well, I'll try and speak loudly to cover the bits in between. So yeah, then we worked on So this was a very cool time manipulation game. I don't know if any of you heard of it. Commercial success proved elusive again, but it was a really, really great game. It was a wonderful thing to work on, and it was great to work with IP holders and understand how that would change the development process for the studio. But again, commercial success just wasn't happening. Our founders went out one day. They went for a blue sky day. It's okay. It's the first talk, right? It's bound to happen. We'll find out if this is any better. Cool. So yeah, Kirsty and James were the founders of the studio, and they popped out for a blue sky day one day to go out and think about what we could make next. They wanted us to try making a first-person shooter, but we had to do it on a budget, with simulators really riding high, and on Steam, charts. There was always a simulator in there. And Kirsty had seen how much people loved power washing videos online. So we slammed the two together and ding, we had this idea. And suddenly everywhere we looked, there was something to power wash. We were getting inspiration for new levels anytime you walked around anywhere. So we knew that Kirsty was onto something with this one. But things started moving slowly. So we knocked up a quick and dirty prototype. And it was just done in less than 2 weeks to really test the idea for us. We started putting out feelers with publishers to see if they'd be interested. We didn't have anything right away, so we took on some more work for hire. We partnered with the Irregular Corporation, who were doing PC Building Simulator. This was absolutely wonderful. We got to work with some real pros in simulations to understand that a lot better. So here is where we are. We are at the beginning of, middle of 2019. There are 18 members of the FuturLab team. Now you can see where that graph is going. So let's get moving on that. So we had the prototype, but we weren't getting a lot of publishing interest. We were still working on PC Building Simulator DLC, but 9 months after creating the prototype, in April 2020, we launched the demo, which was essentially just the prototype tidied up a little bit onto itch. But something else happened in April sort of 2020, as I'm sure you know. There was a pandemic, and the whole studio shifted to remote. Lockdown hit the UK in March 2020. For us, we were sent home just before it became official, and our infrastructure transformed overnight, and it really set the studio down a path to becoming a remote-first studio. If it hadn't been for the pandemic, we probably wouldn't have grown remote in the way that we did. So while everyone went remote, we've stayed remote, and it's been a huge learning for us as we've grown to the size we have while being remote, which we'll come on to in a bit. It is worth mentioning that because PowerWash is a really soothing game, and we knew that, we did feel that people were in need of some soothing at the time. We had a lot of reports from people who were just saying, this is really great to be able to switch off. Anyway, so PowerWash Simulator had a really, really strong vision statement, or a statement of intent for us. And this was 6 players power washing the Millennium Falcon. Now, this is what we were talking about just after the prototype as we went out into itch.io. Now, of course, we were shooting for the moon with this, but it's really worth mentioning this in particular because it's such a great statement of intent, which influenced the gameplay, the features, and the strategy for the studio. And our founder, James Marsden, was really drilling this into us. So, you know, however tough development was, we couldn't drop multiplayer, and so on. So, yeah, it was just a wonderful statement for us all. We all knew what we were making. So here's a little shot of the demo. We started going into our strategy really early to test IP collaboration. So you'll see that's a local green van company in Brighton, and that's a car share as well. So yeah, so that was running. We had a few updates going out for that demo, but it wasn't enough, and we had to take the full game to market. And even though we had this great base of a demo, it wasn't going to scale. Just because it works doesn't mean it'll scale. So the project entered pre-production, the demo went down, and off we went. I mentioned at the top that it wasn't the most exciting idea to be working on a power washing game. The idea of sort of just making cars, just making houses wasn't really for everybody in the studio. We'd been very eclectic. We'd done a lot of really exciting creative work prior to this. And thankfully, Dan Checker, lead designer, came in and made sure that we put as much creativity into this as possible. And it really motivated the team. So we kicked off the project for real. We knew that people out there wanted it, and so off we went. We had a lot of VR experience, so we used that to set our minimum base, really, for the kind of performance of the platform. And we really went hard into this original story. You can see here, this is a mural which is found at the end when the temple has come out from under the sea to fire the beam at the volcano to stop it from erupting. If you haven't played PowerWash Simulator, that might sound a bit mad, but yeah, you do save the world. So this really got great from the team. So yeah, we were now a small team with no early access experience, and we were preparing to launch what essentially was a live game. Concerns were raised that if it really took off and we had thousands and thousands of players, it would actually be extremely difficult to support, both with tech debt accumulation, community feedback coming in, requests from the community for specific new features, having to put out rapid fixes and really minimal QA. So you can see here the dev team size at the time was essentially one game director, 4 programmers, 3 artists, 1 UI artist, 2 designers, 1 producer, and 1 QA. And audio was provided by our partners at Lowrider. So this was a massive undertaking for us. A good problem to have was the answer I got to that, and it kind of became my mantra for the next couple of years. So we were ready to go out into early access. It was right around the corner. And then suddenly we had a publisher. Literally, the week before we launched, we signed with the Square Enix collective. We were fully prepared to go it alone and to take on the risk, but failure would have been really bad for the studio, right? So to mitigate this, we'd continued to speak to various publishers in the background, but many didn't believe that there was a game here. But Square Enix Collective, at the time it was led by a wonderful guy, Phil Elliott. He believed in us. It's now Tamir Edvi looking after Collective. They really believed in what we were doing, but this was still coming as a surprise to many people in the studio because, as you know, we now had a new layer of oversight, but they were really cool. I'd actually worked with the producer that we got assigned as well, but it was still a shock to the team. But we did it. We launched. We went out in May 2021. Players absolutely loved the game. Now, for the studio, this was a really, really, really wonderful period because people just couldn't stop talking about us, and we could turn around incredibly exciting new content and features really, really quickly. So an artist could be off making this wonderful, silly sort of level, and then a couple of months later, their favorite streamer could be playing it and enjoying it. So it was really exciting. Morale was really, really high. We had huge influencers just pick it up on their own to start playing it. Markiplier there. He even has a PowerWash podcast now. And the press just kept writing about it as well, even when we'd rather that they didn't. So we were obviously generating a lot of clicks. So even if we had a rather embarrassing bug where the game would crash, if some lens flare was trying to trigger in multiplayer, the press kept talking about us. But there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? So yeah, we're in early access. We're on the road to 1.0. And the team and the studio really was the embodiment of our sort of metaphor that we have, that our founder likes to have, which is that we're this sort of rickety old car just racing down the motorway at 80 miles an hour, just trying to keep the doors on. But this isn't the best way to be having a project going that's live and big and has a lot of eyes on it. Excuse me. So yeah, tech debt was accumulating from firefighting and from hitting new feature and content goals, fulfilling our milestones, and trying to fulfill our roadmap that we'd agreed with players as well. So here we are now. We are the studio has kept growing for another project, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. We had to be hiring support staff. We had to grow the marketing team. But the development team on PowerWash Simulator actually remained relatively small. And when we left early access, in July 2022, there were about 19 people who were actually working on the game. Now, it was a real roller coaster, but thanks to an incredible team and great from Square, we pulled through and we made it to 1.0. We just moved. A sim ship on all platforms was looking unlikely. We focused on Xbox Steam platforms. Square Enix got us a Game Pass deal. We were okay in the end. But meanwhile, as I'm sure many of you who've been around the industry for a long time will know, not everything was going so well. While we'd found success with PowerWash Simulator, prior to that we hadn't banked on it, and a second project had been maturing and pitching and prototyping for over a year by this point. But it was signed while we were in early access. A separate team was kind of built around it, and it was run concurrently under our wonderful founder, James Marsden. But ultimately, sadly, it never made it to market. So back to PowerWash, and thanks to our friends at Square, we were able to start working on other properties and bringing them into PowerWash. You remember the vision statement I mentioned before? Well, it started to come to fruition, essentially. And in 2023, just after the launch of PowerWash on PlayStation 4, 5, and Switch, we launched Tomb Raider and Final Fantasy packs. Again, this was a huge morale boost for the team. This is suddenly this game that seemed a bit weird to begin with. We were now working with Final Fantasy, with Tomb Raider, and with a lot more to come. And thanks to our relationship with Square, we were able to secure these. We gave them away for free for all of our players, and it gave us a really solid foundation for our biz dev manager, Elliot, to be able to go out and open more and more lines of communication with other franchises. So I'm going to do a couple of those now, just to give you an idea of what we learned as a studio in order to deliver on them. So we did SpongeBob, we did Back to the Future. These were incredible to work on. The tech and the art teams did an incredible job bringing SpongeBob to life. Really matches the visual style. If you haven't seen it, please have a look. They did such a phenomenal job. And we got to work with the original writer in Back to the Future. But we had to adapt our models to the gameplay. And this meant an extra layer of approvals. It meant everything took a little bit longer to build. And you can see where I'm going to be going with this. So we had to grow to keep up. We did a Warhammer pack for Warhammer fans who know, very intricate, which is great for our game because you're always getting all around a model, but it meant everything took longer, more approvals, and so on. So we were learning, but the schedule was looking tighter and tighter. And at the end of 2023, here we are. We were really, really big by this point. Now, we'd always been conscious of not just being another studio that grew too big too fast. We were growing in some areas more than others. We needed a lot of artists to be able to deliver all of our content goals. But we were just getting plans and opportunities that we really couldn't pass up on. And by the end of 2023, we were over 100 people. 49 of them were now working on PowerWash Simulator, including the VR version as well, which is wonderful. Now, there was pain during this point. There is a fine line between growing too fast and being able to keep up with the opportunities. So we did have some managers who were getting overloaded. We had an inconsistent structure, really across all of the disciplines in the studio as well. So we'll talk more about the line. But let me continue the story. Because what we found is that we wanted to bring familiar worlds to PowerWash Simulator. But we found actual success in the public domain IPs, where we were able to make our own adaptation of Alice's Adventures. So we got to make a familiar pack for people who knew a world, but we got to do our own interpretation of it. This really allowed the team to spread their creative wings, which was wonderful, again, for morale after so much sort of, it must be like this. Still to work on, but of course it's very different. Now, after this point, we decided that we were going to make PowerWash Simulator 2. Hopefully, you're all aware that it's coming. We wanted full control over the franchise, both in the sort of release and content pipeline and what we were going to do with it. We had another big story to tell, which we're very excited to share with the world. So we decided that we would create and we would self-publish PowerWash Simulator 2. Of course, financially, it does make sense if you can afford to self-publish. So that's what we decided to do. But now we had even more to do because we still had plans for PowerWash Simulator 1. We still had content that we needed to deliver. We still had a Shrek job to make. I love Shrek. I don't know if other people do, but that was so cool to be working on. So yeah, we had to make that. We had to keep up the original content jobs as well for all of our free players, just to keep feeding the community, really, who've been really insatiable ever since we started. And we still had more to do after that. And earlier this year, I believe, we released the Wallace and Gromit pack because we needed to keep players serviced while we were working on PowerWash Simulator 2. And finally, after a few false starts, our fault, we found success in CodeV, and our friends at Spilt Milk actually made the Wallace and Gromit pack. They did a phenomenal job. Please do have a look. It's really absolutely wonderful. And we spent a lot of time preparing all of the tooling, the documentation, all of the tests, and everything else to make it work this time. And that time investment really, really paid off. If it sounds weird that it was that hard to do CodeV, I must say that our content pipeline is really, really complex, both from a technical perspective, but also from a design perspective, because the art is the level design. So yeah, it's been tricky. But anyway, by this point, something else had changed at the studio. And yeah, with PowerWash being supported, we have a new top secret project underway. PowerWash Simulator 2 is being made. And FuturLab, the studio, was actually acquired. And we joined the Miniclip family in 2024. Because of our success, the power of our IP, we've been able to maintain a huge degree of independence. Right, so that about brings us up to date with the story. Now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some things that we've learned. So first of all, we are still learning every day. This is still very much an evolving situation for us. But I'm just going to give you some of the headlines, some of them more personal for me, some of them more at a sort of studio level of what we've learned throughout this growth. If you ever find yourselves to be in the fortunate position that we've been in where you find success and you need to grow. Cool, so kicking off with some personal learnings really, both because they're in production, but also for me. My career and those of some other members of the senior leadership team developed really rapidly during this period. We stepped up to a lot of new responsibilities, which were evolving every day. It really took a lot of discipline to get our hands out of the machine and to bring new people in to sort of fill the roles that we'd been doing previously. Because when you're a smaller studio, you're wearing a lot of different hats. And as you start to grow, you need to focus more in on the areas of your responsibility. So yeah, several members of the team had similar accelerated growth, and I'll just walk through a couple of points. So stepping back and delegating was a big one, but then trusting people to do that, but then verifying that it has happened. You can go a little bit too far. If you step back a little too far and you haven't verified that something's happening, you can find yourself in a pickle. For me, the sort of very light or kind of indie project management processes, they haven't scaled particularly well, both being big and being remote and not being able to just wander around and see everything when you've got 60 people or so working on a team. It hasn't scaled hugely successfully. If anyone has found success in that, please do come and explain it to me afterwards. But otherwise, yeah, give people the space to make mistakes. I've made mistakes. I've made many mistakes. I'm sure we've all made mistakes. We need to give people the space to do that, but also ensure accountability. As long as people can be accountable for their mistakes and try not to make them again, it's fine, right? We're all learning. And keep a close eye on ownership. As you grow, people may need a bit of help sort of letting go of something that they've owned previously. On to recruitment. So embrace remote if you're doing it. I don't know if you all are, if there's a mix or whatever, but accept the limitations of it. And if you want people to ever get together from time to time, make sure you've budgeted appropriately, or you've hired geographically, locally enough to be able to get people in without taking a day or so of travel. And define the values and behaviors that you want early. For us, our founders and directors at the time, they had a very, very solid idea of who they wanted, of the kinds of people that they wanted to bring into the studio. But suddenly they weren't able to be across every single hire that we were making. So writing that down was really important. And they'd always had humility, kindness, and skill as the three sort of core things that we wanted anyone coming into FuturLab to bring. We've since added resilience, and we've also been working on formalizing some more of our kind of values around this, which we're still working on at the moment, but it is important to try and set it early, really, if only to help you with your recruitment. So yeah, we want to make sure now that people are committing to decisions, even if you disagree. It's hard, but it is important. We want people focused on collaboration and putting the success of the team above themselves. We want everyone to be unlocking potential in each other. We think that's absolutely key. Being accountable at all levels, as I've mentioned, and being kind, not nice. So for us, everyone who comes into FuturLab will always say, oh, everyone here is so nice. And that is absolutely true. We have such a wonderful team and we are so lucky to have that. But you do have to make sure that it doesn't hold you back from giving people the kind of feedback that they need to be able to grow. So we all need to do the right thing and be kind about it and not sort of hide behind being nice. Recruitment pipeline. If you are building a very big team very quickly, build that pipeline first and embrace those applicant tracking systems. We use Workable. embrace that early, get everything set up, and bear in mind that interviews and sifting candidates can take a really, really long time. So if your hiring manager is also your art lead, make sure they don't have too much work to be doing. In the world of development, and that integrating your marketing and community teams with development early on is, well, it was just hugely, hugely beneficial for us. I can't overstate how important it was having our head of marketing working alongside me, having our marketing managers really in there with the dev team to understand everything that we were doing and everything that we were putting out. It was invaluable in the early phases of the project. So if you're doing that, I'd highly recommend getting your marketing as close to dev as possible. And yeah, if you're dealing with external IPs or you're releasing regular updates, get yourself ahead. At least 3 months of absolutely content complete. This is done. We're working on something else. Because what's going to happen with that build is going to be more layers of approvals than you might have imagined. There'll be more eyes coming onto it as the marketing pipeline goes through. So make sure you've got yourself 3 months at the very least when your content is ready to go out. And if things are starting to get tight, as much as it can be a pain for the community or it could be a pain from a commercial point of view, you do have to slow down your releases to be able to catch up. You'll be very happy that you did so later. And prepare for code dev early. I mentioned our workflow is particularly tough, but yeah, it can really save you from growing too big if you don't want to. So yeah, it took a lot of planning for us to get it right. So yeah, do that. People first. Without our people, of course, we are nothing. So yeah, don't sleep on the need to formalize your performance and reviews. Consistent and fair. Really incredible in many ways. And our founder actually did one-to-ones for the entire company when I joined him. For the first couple of years, he was still doing the one-to-ones with everyone on the team. Now, this is a wonderful opportunity for everyone from a junior to a senior to be able to sit down and have their career talked about with the founder, but it couldn't scale. So yeah, it took us a little too long to sort that one out. And use experts to train your managers, and experience can trickle down faster than experience. So yeah, there's plenty of experts out there. Use them. Your people may need to learn, it might be some of the basics about how to handle sort of leave requests or difficult conversations and that sort of thing. And if you've grown very quickly, perhaps you haven't all had the same exposure to great managers. So use experts if you've got them. And with communication, do mix it up frequently. If you have a lot of standing meetings, if you're sort of updates or talking about things, sometimes these can get a little bit stale, even if they're perfectly efficient and the best way to do something. So sometimes just mixing it up is the best thing to do. And don't try and wait for that perfect idea of how we're going to do communication to come about. That is a folly. Just change for the sake of change can sometimes help if things are getting a little bit stale. So yeah, some final thoughts for you. The coordination headwind of growing can be really frustrating. Coordination headwind, of course, just means that doubling a team doesn't double the output. Eventually, as you start adding more and more people to a team, the amount of output goes down a little bit. It can be frustrating. Make sure everyone's aware that is a thing, and that can really help. And in general, make sure that everyone really accepts that change that comes with growth, accepts that coordination headwind, that the same people can't always own everything that they've previously been owning, and so on. Make sure your key people are really embracing that. And try and find something to hold on to maintain the feeling of your studio, but do not drown in nostalgia. Putting together this talk was really interesting, even just digging up that top image there of the studio shortly after I joined. It was very easy to look back and think, oh, things were so simple then. But they weren't. We had very big problems. And you always will, because what we do is really, really, really hard, right? We're in a very difficult industry. And yeah, we've managed to maintain the sort of kindness and respect among our staff. And for me, that's such a cool thing to be able to hold on to. And I'm going to leave you with a thought here from Chris Mears. he joined as COO while we were in early access. He's currently acting CEO while Kirsty is away on maternity. But this is both my comfort blanket and also just something really important for everyone to know is that you are either winning or you are learning. As long as you are accountable, you're not failing, right? You are learning. So yeah. So there we have it. We grew. We grew big. We're now 110 people. If we need to, we will keep growing. We will keep doing so very carefully. We do have some roles open, but yeah. Thanks. I think it's time for questions.
Du coup, on va passer aux questions-réponses. Si quelqu'un a une question, vous pouvez lever la main et on va venir vous donner le micro. Ou alors, vous pouvez, si vous êtes sur le serveur Discord du Game Camp, les poser dans le salon textuel Raya Lucaria. We're now going to start with the questions. If you have any questions, please raise your hand and we will come and give you the mic, or you can type them on the Discord server in the Raya Lucaria channel.
Hey, hello. Thank you very much for the talk here. Hi, Florian for Usables. I do have one question because of, well, you basically multiply by 8 your staff members on 5 years. How did you manage with the onboarding process? Do you have something prefixed or did it on the row?
Yeah, it evolved over time. Yeah, basically, you start with your basic checklist. And every time you learn something new is going on to it. Eventually, we put a bit more time into trying to get ahead of those things. But ultimately, you keep learning. And the bigger you get, the more that onboarding needs to change, right? So now we have a sort of buddy system at a studio level. So when someone comes in, they've got someone to go and talk to. But then we also had to add that at a project level as well. So you've got someone maybe in a different discipline on a project that you're always going to speak to there. There's a lot more paperwork as you get bigger as well. So and of course, a lot more software to sort of be onboarded with. So yeah, I mean, we always have a sit down with our COO or CEO as well for new starters to get a sort of broad vision of the company, and that incorporates anything that we're evolving at the time, be that values or behaviours or anything like that. So yeah, it keeps evolving.
Brian, thank you.
Okay.
Est-ce que quelqu'un d'autre a une question?
Hello again.
If no one wants? No? Okay. Well, you say that everyone was nice in the team. Do you have any, not fun fact, but experience post-mortem thing to say about situation you faced, about maybe things happening that's turned the thing bad, or in terms of HR or culture of your inside the company?
No, we've been really, really good at that. Really, it's just a wonderful bunch of people that we have. You know, when you're working in creative teams, there can be differences of opinion, but yeah, we don't have any.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay.
Hi there.
Hello.
Yeah, to bounce on the previous question, almost the same, but on the production perspective, because you guys like skyrocketed, and in this like scaffolding, was there any moment in the production where like things started to a bit like collapse, and you had to scale up from a very indie structural way of processing the production to like a more AA, stronger but more like structural approach?
Yeah, not so much during PowerWash Simulator 1. We were quite we were into a rhythm with it, and it was really a content kind of workflow on that. I think with other projects, yeah, things have changed. So we've actually currently got two. We're looking for 2 new producers to come in, bringing in a bit more of that sort of AAA experience, because not every role is suitable to that sort of indie spirit. And I think when you've got a big, you do need to look at sort of AAA production. Yeah, we're going through that right now, actually.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
And it makes sense also with when you wrote AAA skills.
Yes.
People use usually AAA structure and stuff, but not really talk about AAA scales. And it's true that you need the knowledge to be able to implement that.
Yeah, I am absolutely not the best producer in the studio, right? I may be the head of production, but I'm learning all the time.
As long as you got the spirit.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you.
Hi, bonjour.
You said that you are full remote, so all your studio is remote, or I just understood not right?
Oh, sorry. So anyone can be remote, but about 12 people who still work regularly in the office. Of those, only about 6 are full-time actually in the office. I'm one of them, funnily enough. I like to walk to work every day. It is mostly people who had the studio prior to the growth and were kind of already used to going into the office. But if we hire anyone new, they can be absolutely fully remote. But yeah, there is a small contingent in the office.
So you were kind of 20 persons on the office, and everyone else is like around the world or just nearby?
So they're all over the UK and a couple of people on the continent as well, but
Okay.
predominantly UK.
And it's I asking because in the studio where I work, we have a remote thing, and it's always a question: remote, no remote. What's the advantages? So, for you, it's something that is really great and you love it, or do you have downsides, or how do you manage them? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, we're still learning about it, right? We've sort of getting used to remote while getting used to being really big. So yeah, we're finding out new things about it all the time. I mean, the one thing is that we can hire from anywhere, right? So we have brilliant people in every role because we didn't have to find someone who was right around the corner or was able to uplift their life and their kids and whatever and move down to Brighton. So we have just incredible people. Of course, communication is the hardest thing about being remote. And yeah, I think like a lot of remote studios, we're still working on the best way to do that. But like I said, we've just got to keep trying new things because sometimes it is just mixing it up can be the solution in some ways.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On va avoir le temps pour une dernière question, je pense. Ah bah, voilà.
Hello. So I was wondering, like, you were working on some kind of public IP. So did you have to switch from like an indie production pipeline to have some sort of external data migration pipeline to be able to get the assets, or where you were making everything from scratch? Like,
Yeah, so we were making everything from scratch with varying levels of great reference material coming in, essentially. So for some of those that you saw there will have been 3D assets that have been created for either other games or for part of their own workflows. But typically we had to build everything from scratch due to the complexity of what we were going to do with it, right? But obviously if you can get a perfect 3D model of I've forgotten the name, a dreadnought from Warhammer, right? If the artist can sit down with a perfect 3D model as reference, then we're going to have a quicker time of doing it than doing it from scratch or from other little things. So yeah, we got great reference materials from those IPs, but we had to build everything from scratch.
oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ok, on arrive à la fin de la conférence. Merci à tous d'être venus. On va maintenant vous inviter à sortir par la sortie juste là-bas en bas qu'on va vous ouvrir.